Welcome to podcast number 212. Have you heard about pole planning and want to know more? Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everyone. I hope your Thursday is shaping up to be great. You know, someone once told me to make it a great day, and I got made fun of just a little bit when I repeated that one time. And somebody said that sounded a little bit silly, but I think it's kind of cool. Make it a great day. Like, you have the control, you have the ability to do that. And especially going back to some of the topics that we've been covering lately, if you have the right clarity, the right mindset, personal organization, and a morning routine. With your morning routine, adding in, heading in the right direction, doing it with the right mind, and doing it in an organized way, you have the ability to make it a great day. So just want to say, I hope you're making it a great day. I'm excited to be on the podcast with you today. We're going to talk about pole planning. So pole planning is a pain in the butt, everybody. Hey, y'all, pole planning is difficult. It's difficult because you're retraining, you're reprogramming a bunch of people that have been trained by society to sit back and not speak up. But is it valuable? I can say that it has been valuable in my life and in my career in construction. And so we're going to talk about it now. I will say that I personally use the terms pole planning and phase planning a little bit differently than most people use them. So when I am planning a phase of work up to a milestone, I call that phase planning. Pole planning to me is a technique. It's the way you do it. And so if I'm doing a phase plan, I can phase plan it with flow, with Takt, or I can phase plan it with pole planning, or I can phase plan it with traditional techniques, or I can phase plan it with visuals, or I can phase plan it with a number of different things, right? But phase planning is the key thing. We need to be planning up into milestones. So I use the terminology a little bit different than I think some people do. To me, pole planning is a technique. And so we're going to talk about that technique tonight. But please just know, from me at least, as I speak about it contextually, when you're merging what I say or reconciling what I say with what other people say, there's a master schedule, and I prefer that you do that with a Takt plan, but that delivers milestones. And what we want to do is plan phases up into those milestones. And again, you can, if you opt into it, use phase or pole planning rather as a technique to do that phase planning. And then you obviously do your make ready look ahead, your weekly work plan, your day plan, and then your communication to your workers. So just to give you some context and some definitions there, I wanted to make sure that I was making that clear. So I found a section that was going to go into the Elevate Construction Superintendent's book. But again, like I said, it wasn't an 11 out of 10. It was a 10 out of 10. So I didn't include it in the book. But I'm going to go through these and make sure each and every one of these is in a podcast. And so actually this one was pull, not push. This was going to be Principle 14. Pull in construction can be hard to visualize. And this is something that I wrote that was going to be in the book. Pull in construction can be hard to visualize. But the concept is about flow. One contractor pulls another contractor into an area once the first contractor is complete, clean, and completely demobilized. The focus is on a steady pace based on when work or areas are ready. Push, in contrast, means that we push contractors on top of each other, whether the other contractor is set up to pull them into the area or not. When we push contractors on top of each other, they lose money, lose productivity, and the pushing gives a false sense of hope because we think they started on time. This is not an effective practice. We need to reduce the negative effects of bottlenecks, variation, and slower trades by optimizing work and removing roadblocks. Pushing contractors on top of each other simply means that work will be out of sequence with poor quality, lack safety, and take longer with more money spent to accomplish the work. Project teams are successful when they help contractors be successful so they can pull other contractors behind them. This concept of flow can be applied to many other areas in construction as well. And so that's my little section there. And I appreciate you going through that with me. And that's a really good intro to the podcast topic today. But first, let me talk about a couple of things. What am I excited about in life? Well, I'm excited about two things. One, I'm excited about the consulting that I've been able to do, going to projects, recovering projects, advising and getting scheduling systems up like quickly on a project, assessing the problems and what the next steps are. Consulting has been really fun and effective. I'm really surprised at how effective it is. The other thing is team health. Working with clients on organizational health, team health. By the way, kudos to Elevate Construction. We're doing our first leadership team offsite next week. Very excited about that. So we do a lot of team health, organizational health as a company. And I'm very excited about that. The other thing is that I'm excited about is in the future, more and more speaking assignments. And so my invitation is if you are like, I'm not ready to do a boot camp, I'm not ready to go all in with the consulting, why don't you come out to our organization and speak and get us amped up about it and see where it goes and plant some seeds. I love that. Just a funny little thing. Throughout church, I've pretty much had to give a talk every 2 to 3 months for the last 18 years. And I do podcasts continually, and I've had the ability to speak over and over and over and constantly teach and do trainings at work. And so I love speaking. In fact, I get into a completely different mode when I'm public speaking. I'm like part Tony Robbins, part Eric Thomas, part LeGrand Richards. It's kind of a funny thing, but I love speaking and I'm excited for that in the future. So let's go on to talk about some of the fans and their feedback. Oh, real quick. Tomorrow we have a podcast interview. Oh, that would be your Thursday. And then Friday morning, another podcast interview that's going to be fantastic. It's going to be about diversity and inclusion and some really key, wonderful topics. And I think it's a perfect topic for this month specifically as well. I've also got, my dad was a truck boss and a leader in a ready-mix company and also a truck driver for most of his life. And so the person that asked me about vendors and how contractors can set up those relationships, he's going to get on this podcast with me and talk about some of those things. Also, we have some other podcasts coming up with some of our favorites, and so I'm really excited about that. And so we have a lot of really good content to look forward to. I've already got the next couple of days of podcasts lined out. I've got my books open and out ready to go. Also, the BIM podcast that I've been promising you. So we've got some good stuff coming our way. Where am I? Holy cow. Oh, I was talking about the fans and feedback. Okay, this is where we go. This is truly the best and they were talking about the book here. This is truly the best educational tool I have ever had the pleasure to learn from throughout my career in construction. All of the best skills are laid out in here that I have admired and great supers I've worked with. Subscribe to his podcast also. So very much appreciate that. Oh, by the way, the fable with elevating construction tact planning is done. The editor is probably about 30 pages from being done, and I'm right behind her. And my wife is actually going through and checking anything just to make sure that we're good to go. So I'm really hoping that by the end of the month, we've uploaded Elevating Construction Tact Planning to Kindle and to Amazon, and we've already got the production company set up. I'm already working on the visuals as well. So the marketing person that we have working with us on Upwork is already working on that. Very excited. So that should be coming out really soon. So if anybody's like, yep, I enjoyed the Takt podcast, don't know how to implement it, we have a book with a fable, with visuals, and also going to be on audio as well, coming for you right around the corner. So let's talk about our podcast for tonight. Here's our conflict. Pull planning is an applied tool. Are you using it correctly? So let me just give you a brief little span of history for me in pull planning. I first got introduced to Lean with the book 2 Second Lean by Paul Akers, and then some very proficient folks introduced Last Planner to us on the project and came out and visited, and we immediately began the morning huddles, and we began the weekly work planning meetings, and we began doing weekly work plans, and it was fantastic. Somebody the other day said, you're a really big fan of Takt. which is not a push system, by the way. It's a flow system. And they said, are you also critical of Last Planner? And I'm like, no. The only criticism that I have of Last Planner and pull planning is that we don't update it, meaning that we've had the same system for, what is it, like 15 years now? I don't know, like a long time. And we're not using the PDCA cycle on it enough. And people just want to keep it the way it is, and it needs to be adapted. There are quite a few areas where it doesn't work anymore, especially on complex interiors and large buildings, large mega projects. But I love Last Planner. And while I don't love pull planning as much, I do see the value in it. And I very much see the value in it for things like design, MRIs, complex sequences, complex architectural areas, and getting people on the same page to see as a group, know as a group, and act as a group. Now, are we going to pull plan the whole project, especially where there's standardization? We already know what we're doing? Probably not. And again, like I said, to do phase planning, you can use pull planning as a tool, or you can use other planning techniques. But the bottom line is, I learned this at the Cancer Center, the Last Planner system, and then really started my pull planning journey when I was at DPR with the Bioscience Research Laboratory job, and it worked really well. I've done pull plans backwards, from the milestone back. I've done it forward. I've done it on stickies. I've done it day by day. I've done more high level pull plans. I've done what you might even call a visual pull plan. I've done it in Excel. I've done it in vPlanner. I've done it in Smartsheet. I've done it on actual boards. I've done it with stickies. I've done it with dry erase. I've done it with the slats. I've done it with cards. I've done it with laminated cards. I've done this over and over and over, and I've seen it done, and I know how to use the system, and I know the variations, and I know how to implement it. So you can take some confidence from that. Also, the AGC Lean course takes you through a nice little simulation, but it's very basic, and I've been through some of the more complex simulations and have really appreciated the detail and the concepts on how to do it. And then when I was working at Oakland, implementing pull planning, and especially pull planning in the field, and then in design, with these virtual systems during COVID-19 has been very interesting. And I just want to say that there are times to implement it. And when you do, it's really good to be prepared and to have the team prepared. And if there were, a couple of things that I would very much recommend, it would be educating people ahead of time, making sure that you have people do their homework before they show up, and that you have a strong collaborative leader in there that clearly lays out the ground rules of the meeting, and that you just stick with it and push through and make sure that people are actually using it when they're done. So those are some of my high level ideas. So I'm going to go through, and in fact, Spencer that sounds negative, but detailed out the pull planning meeting for the virtual meetings and the template that we use that I'm going to cover here. But first, I want to take you to two references. So we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight. And because I'm referencing these, I'm going to give you the source. So one of these is the AGC's Lean Construction Education Program, Unit number 2, Pull and Construction. And this is the participants manual. So let's go in here. This is what it says about push versus pull. Batch and queue production systems are referred to as push systems because materials and information are pushed through the production process depending on the production upstream and based on a predetermined schedule. In contrast, continuous flow production systems are referred to as pull systems because material and information is pulled through the production process based on downstream demand. In the ideal pull system, only one product is in the production sequence, an idealistic goal in construction. And then it goes on to say pull production systems. In pull systems, work releases based on demand of downstream customers or production units, the opposite of push systems. The work is executed based on system demand and status. The system strictly controls work in progress and closely monitors throughput. In a pull system, because work occurs when the next production unit requests it, there is reliable workflow in the process. A pull system is necessary but not sufficient to realize continuous flow. And so I really like that. The only thing that I would say is that a Takt plan is a predetermined schedule sequence, but it's not a predetermined schedule sequence of when it will happen. It is a predetermined schedule sequence on the flow and the stagger of what should happen, and it helps manage our supply lines. When they're talking about push systems, they're talking about CPM. There's just no way, in fact, it's stupid to think this, that you can, to schedule something that detailed that far out in advance. Putting it onto a Takt plan where your supply chains are stable, and then making sure that you have some detailed flow and some pull in the moment in the weekly work plan is exactly something that I would recommend. But having CPM, a push system ahead of it, absolutely not. So let's go into a different book. It's called Lean Project Delivery, Building Championship Project Teams by David Umstadt and Dan Frauchier. Now, I love this red book. I wish it was on audio. In fact, if the authors, I don't know, let me see if there's a publisher here. I don't know if there is a publisher, but if they would let me, I would record this book on audio. I mean, it's really great. I just love this book. So in here, there's a section, I'm going to use it as an excerpt, as a quote. And it talks about the phase pull. That's what they call it. The last planners, and they're talking about the last planner system, but they're in the phase pull section. The last planners develop a more detailed plan where they can see specific activities between the milestones. They pull activities from right to left from a milestone, typically 2 to 3 months away. This emphasizes durations, handoffs, and crew sizes. We share more detail later in this chapter on what information needs to be captured on. I'm reading this, by the way, everyone. Captured on each individual tag. The production plan for each phase is created using the pull technique, starting from the milestone on the right and working to the start of the phase towards the left. We pull right to left for two main reasons. Number one, doing anything backwards forces us to think more creatively and more freshly. Number two, it allows us to flush out all the small details and constraints that might ultimately delay any one activity if not identified earlier. Let me pause here. The best pull planning that I've done in design, this is where I was doing it, but it's where you do work from right to left. And the reason that you go from right to left is once you get a card, a tag, a sticky, whatever you want to call it, an activity, in here they call them tags, you write the activity, you write who it is, you write the duration, but then you also write what they call their constraints, or what I would call their predecessors. For that tag, that activity to happen, they need this, 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 and this. And then immediately you don't leave that sticky, that tag, until there are stickies or tags before it in the pull planning sequence that address those needs. And then you can check each one off box by box. And then when you've exhausted everything from right to left, then you know the sequence is complete. Otherwise, you may have forgotten something. So that's my best practice. Let's go back to the book. This also ensures the logic of the production flow is accurately captured. Questions that should be addressed as part of the pull backwards pass are: number one, what is the last activity to complete in order to start this work? Number two, what could prevent you from starting your work? Number three, is there anything else that would prevent you from starting? Number four, is there any opportunity to start your work concurrently? Number five, what would that take? Don't be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes the question you ask will spur another question from someone else. It is far better to discover the issues in planning than during work execution. I totally agree with that. It's critically important that the team clearly communicates the handoff requirements between activities. This includes identifying what conditions must be completed before the next party is able to do their work or pull the work behind them. This avoids misunderstanding between parties and disruptions in the production flow. Missed handoffs are one of the biggest contributors to delays in work. And I totally agree with that. And so ensuring that these handoffs are clear is a big focus. And making sure that all of the roadblocks and issues are flushed out and the problems are flushed out and everybody can see what is going on. Each activity is represented by a color post-it tag or sticky. Each tag should include organization, crew size, activity, constraint, duration of work days, and an ID number. The ID numbers are important because if you've ever done a pull plan and you're like, wait a minute, what tag took care of the constraint or the predecessor on this card, tying those IDs together is really important. So I I really have enjoyed the IDs. Almost done here. Each discipline or trade is responsible for completing their own tag. It is their activity, and they know best how they are planning to accomplish the work, including crew size, sequence, predecessor activities, or constraints necessary to release their work and duration. Activity durations should be kept to durations of 10 days or less. An activity longer than that can be broken down into shorter duration subtasks. This allows for better planning, potential smaller batching, or work allowing better workflow and more accountability when tracking progress. If there is a missing predecessor activity that is required to release someone's work, the downstream activity owner should make a request of the party that needs to perform that work to write that tag and place it on the plan. Constraints should be handled in a similar manner. We like to use a working definition of predecessors as activities to be completed by another discipline or trade to release the work, and constraints as items that require input and action by others that may not be part of the working last planner team. I like that. After the backwards pull is completed, then a forward pass left to right needs to be conducted to ensure that the plan demonstrates a logical building sequence, as well as to aid in identifying opportunities for schedule improvement. Examples of schedule improvement may include identifying scopes of work that may need to be performed more quickly with either additional resources or reallocation of resources from less critical items to those that are needed to release other work as early as possible. And then once the pull planning is done, for that phase plan, you have detail that can schedule manpower, materials, and information, and then feed into the make work ready planning, or the 6-week look aheads, or the make ready look aheads, whatever you want to call them. So that is directly from Lean Project Delivery, Building Championship Project Teams by David Umstadt and Dan Fauchier. Man, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I hope I don't get in trouble for that. Anyway, so pull planning, just to summarize it, is where you need to plan a phase. You take the milestone to the right, you put it up on the board. I would actually recommend that you don't put it into a time scale. It's going to confuse you. But actually just put it in sequence with the stickies, and you start working backwards. And on the sticky, it's going to have needed predecessors. What do you need for that sticky, that activity, that tag to actually get started? And then that means that a request is made for others to put their tags up in sequence, working from right to left. And then hey, this is the sequence for us to do this. Then you can plug that in. You can actually plug it into a timeline. You can do it on the board. You can plug it into vPlanner. You can plug it into a number of different softwares, and basically see what the overall time duration is, and then run left to right and make sure the sequence is correct. And it's pretty neat because even though it's a pain, meaning getting trade partners to get up there and actually follow the rules and visualize and do these things can be difficult. It helps people to really commit and know the sequence. So I love that. Now, what I want to talk about now is the Elevate Construction Pull Planning method for doing it virtually, and how we like to prepare. And I think you're going to find this valuable. I'll do a blog post on it. So for preparation, first is research. For the phase we're pulling, you need a high-level understanding of the activities you will be performing and the needs that you'll have. This will help you build that understanding, that knowledge in advance. The pre-plan. Think through and list in the table the homework, the major activities in your workflow, and their approximate time durations. Don't concern yourself with actual dates yet. Know your needs. For each of your activities, list the things you need, if any, meaning your predecessors. What do you need for that activity to start, and from whom to complete your activity? List these needs in the boxes and make sure that you can create flow if you get what you need. And then if you're going to do the homework, we have a pull planning worksheet that's pretty fantastic. And so when you go on here, there are a number of really neat rules in here that help guide somebody if you actually send them the homework. I really enjoy this template. Basically, it says from the end of your sequence for this scope of work, for your conditions of satisfaction, list out all your activities, but also say, what are your needs, right? And so here are the rules. It says, for the phase we are pulling, you need a high-level understanding of the activities. Number 2, think through the list on the table below the major activities in your workflow. Number 3, for each of your activities, list the things you need. Number 4, list your activities and their needs backwards from the final milestone. Number 5, be brief. Number 6, concentrate on your larger, higher level activities. Number 7, when the team meets, you will be asked to place notes in your commitment lane and to place your tags on the boards. After each member lays out their own workflow, the team is ready to do the pull plan. And so it has a place in here. We'll share these templates with you. And then it also asks you to put them in sequence. And so that when somebody comes ready doing this homework, they've already thought through their activities. They've thought through what their needs are, and they've thought through the sequence of from start to finish, how does this interact? And if you have everybody do this on a collaborative sheet, you can already kind of coordinate how it interfaces with some of the other disciplines. Let's say, for instance, this was for design, and you have the architect, the interiors architect, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, those engineers, low voltage, the contractor, all of these folks can detail out their sequence and have this homework done ahead of time. It's pretty remarkable. So then you get set up. And I've seen people use Bluebeam or a program called Concept Board or a program or vPlanner, which is my favorite. So, but for a Bluebeam session, the setup, let me just talk to you about it. Create a session. And sessions are difficult because you can't modify somebody else's tags, but if everybody's actually participating, it works pretty well. And because you can't modify somebody else's tag, it follows the pull planning rules. So create a session and invite others to join. Best practice is to have any documents relevant to the plan included in the session documents. That's brilliant. Set your colors. Make sure to create a color key and a legend to be able to keep track of what each color card means. You'll find a spot under the board name where you can add your swim lane names and colors when needed. Then you do the plan. What are your milestones? List your activities and their needs backward from the milestone that you're pulling to, the phase you're pulling to, based on what you are required to deliver. So swim together. Spend an amount of time in the beginning understanding how the horizontal lines will be utilized so your swim lanes are correct. Common uses for swim lanes include geographical swim lanes, phase swim lanes, or design packages, so on. Be brief. Each activity and their needs must fit on a plan card. The description should only be detailed enough to remind you and the team of the negotiations you had on the subject or the handoffs. Detail. Concentrate on your larger, higher level activities that are of interest to the other disciplines and have needs from the other team members and that are a part of the key sequence. Commit. When the team meets, you will be asked to place notes in your commitment lane listing each of your activities and the activities that you need to put up, your cards, your tags, and the handoffs that you need, and for you to speak up and be ready to commit as long as you get what you need. So trust the process in each other is the last point. After each member lays out their workflow, the team will work backwards through the entire board, negotiating and committing to additional workflow items that satisfy each card's needs. It is imperative to have trust in the room with each other. Make sure to allow time to build the trust. There can be no real commitment in any untrustworthy environment. And so if you actually open a Bluebeam session, you prepare it, you've done your homework, you actually do the pull plan, and then you have notes, you can either just use that, or you can plug that into your scheduling software, you can plug that into vPlanner, you can put or you can whatever you want to do with the information, and then your design team, your construction team, your MRI team, your whatever team that's using the pull plan has that information ready to go in a sequence that was committed and that's fairly stable because you're creating flow from one contractor to another. So pretty fantastic stuff. My point is this: do the homework. You can do this then in person or virtually, as long as you make sure that everyone's participating, you've prepped them ahead of time, they're following the rules, and then you have to absolutely use this pull plan afterwards for it to be valuable to you. So the current condition is a lot of people are like, yeah, I think I know pull planning. I think I've dabbled with it. Get some facilitation. It's really nice when you can do pull planning the right way. My challenge for you would be make sure that you need to do pull planning when you're doing your phase plan. If you do it right. And I want to remind you again of the quote, flow where you can, pull when you can't, and push when you must. Flow is key. There is a way, and it is a misconception that having a predetermined sequence, having a predetermined stagger, having a predetermined flow is a bad thing, because you can remove roadblocks in order to do that. So flow with staggers at the right speed, at the right pace, and the right areas with Takt when you can. When you can't, pull plan it, pull it, use pull systems, and then by all means, or not by all means, by all means, wait till the absolute last moment to use CPM and push systems, because they do not work. They are detrimental. They cause chaos. They waste money. They're some of the most wasteful systems ever. And the metrics do not give us what we need. That's going to be proven very shortly with my book about Takt planning. I can't wait to get that out to you. So I hope tonight's little podcast has been helpful to you. If you want help with pull planning, reach out. We're here to help. We've got some amazing content coming up for you on Friday. Please stay with us. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.